Tonight, we hope to tell the story of one of the most lovable fools in show business.
Suffice it to say that what separates him from the rest of his profession is that he is beloved, while the rest are merely beliked.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Harry Seacombe.
Take me to your heart again. Let's make a start again. Forgiving and
This is the story of a man I was lucky enough to call a friend and mentor. As a comic, he was one of a small group of performers who changed the face of British comedy. As a singer, he captivated audiences worldwide, but it was as a man that Harry Seacombe touched the hearts of millions. Harry was born in Swansea in 1921, the son of a travelling salesman. His parents, Fred and Gladys Seacombe, lived with their 3 children in rented rooms in the St Thomas area of the city. Harry was a shy child, but he still got up to his fair share of mischief.
Now, what I want to know, Mr. Seacombe, is was he a bit of a handful?
Not really a handful. He was always locking the boat house.
Well, he certainly was a problem child, but he was the best and loveliest problem I ever had.
Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Seacombe. Thank you.
When Harry was 4, the Seacombes moved to a brand new council house here on St Leger Crescent. It seemed immense to the young Harry, who couldn't quite believe that a whole house could possibly be theirs. The new house was just up the road from the parish church that gave the area of St Thomas its name. It was a solid working-class neighbourhood, and the church was at the centre of community life. Harry, who sang in the choir, used to go 4 times every Sunday. When he was singing in church, Harry used to lean forward so that he'd catch the sunbeams coming in through those stained glass windows. He liked to think of them as his personal spotlight. But when it came to performing outside church, he was far shyer.
Sometimes after school, after church, they'd have a bit of a little party. Everybody did something. Now, when they wanted me to sing, I was too embarrassed to sing in the room, in the house. So I used to go to the outside toilet, where I sat on the wooden throne with the cut-out squares of News of the World on a nail as a sort of backcloth. And I'd sit there and sing with the door open, and they'd listen inside. Ridiculous, really. Could I be, this bless this house, oh Lord, and all the dogs and cats had set up, and they'd applaud inside. Bloody lunatic with my trousers around my ankle. I didn't sit there with my trousers on. I thought I better do it properly. What a twit.
Harry went to St Thomas Boys Elementary School. There he did well in English and art, if not in other subjects.
I wasn't very bright, you know.
Were you not?
Bit of an idiot. I remember when the results of the matriculation, it's a filthy habit, the matriculation. When the results of the Central Welsh Board examination come out, all sitting in class, you see, Teddy Testtube, who was the maths master, also the chemistry master, that's why he got the name Teddy Testtube. Anyway, he was reading out the results, you see, he hadn't got to a name at all. So he picked up a piece of paper off the desk and he waved it like this. We're in the present of history, he said. History. There's a paper here with no marks out of 100 for geometry. Seacombe, stand up. Stood up, took a call. Thank you. Everybody clapped. You're a clown, he said.
Clowning was something Harry did take seriously. He was a wireless fanatic and a keen admirer of comics like Max Miller and Tommy Handley. He and his sister Carol used to do a double act at local social nights. And when Harry left school and started work as a junior pay clerk, his impersonation of his boss almost cost him his job. But in 1939, life was about to get far more serious for him and everyone else in the country. With war looming, Harry decided to join the Territorials here in Swansea. The only problem was that he was chronically short-sighted, so he got a friend to copy out the army eye chart for him, and Harry learnt it all off by heart. In the army, Harry continued to play the clown. During his training as a gunner, he almost shot a postman on Margam Dunes. But he survived that incident and was soon sailing for Africa with the Operation Torch Invasion Force. Once they'd landed at the port of Algiers, all that stood between them and their objective, Tunis, was 500 miles of desert and the German 10th Panzer Division.
We went there in November 1942, and we had quite a tough time. 132 Field Regiment, Swansea Territorial Regiment, and we had lost a lot of lads out there. I mean, you can't share your experience with anybody else. You can't tell people what war is like. You can't tell them about what it is to see a pal dying or that sort of thing. You can't share that. But those people who've been with it, been through it with you, understand. Even if you don't say anything, they understand. And you hold hands now and again and shake hands and share memories.
Harry later wrote, 132 Field Regiment was home to me for 4 years, and I could not have grown up with a better bunch of lads.
You realise that you just walk about with sort of frail covering of flesh, and the rest of it is all pretty vulnerable. And your mental attitude changes, I think. I remember thinking, I'm not going to call anybody sir again after this, for example.
Harry was one of a generation of young men whose attitude to authority was fundamentally changed by war. And in the deserts of North Africa, he had a fateful meeting with the biggest anti-authoritarian in the British Army.
Did you meet any of the generals?
I met a very famous person now. His name escapes me in a minute. Yeah. Milligan, Spike Milligan.
No.
Yes, indeed. That's where we met. Yes.
Where did you meet Spike?
He was washing his white flag for surrender in a wadi at the time. He's there.
I know. Can you enlighten us? You actually, because Harry was telling us where you met. I'm saying he said
we were alive when we met.
He's got a point there.
You didn't throw a large gun at him then at any time?
Tell him the story.
We were on a cliff, and this huge gun of 7.4, and we fired the gun, and it rolled backwards and went over the cliff. When we looked back, it was gone. So the captain said, he said, look, somebody must go down and look for it. I thought, I go, sir, anything to get out of the war. I went down and said, no, this regiment were parked out in tents. So I went down to the open tents and said, have you seen a gun? And this bloke said, what colour?
After they'd taken Tunis, 132 Field Regiment was sent to Italy. There, Harry joined the divisional concert party. Performing sketches night after night alongside female impersonators and comedy vicars, he realised he'd found his calling. In April 1946, Harry found himself back on Civvy Street with a one-way ticket to Swansea in his hand. A few days after he'd been demobbed, Harry went for a night out at Mumbles Pier Dance Hall. He was going through a Canadian phase at the time, wearing a lumberjack shirt, putting on an accent and pretending to chew gum. But he must have been doing something right, because when he asked a pretty dark-eyed girl called Myra for a dance, she said yes.
Do you remember the dance hall at the Mumbles near Swansea?
Of course.
Yes.
I met my wife there.
Yes, that's where you met your wife-to-be. Come in, Mrs. Myra Seacombe, please.
Myra! That's lovely.
I was at the Mumbles at the dance with a few of my girlfriends, and I was just about to get my last bus home when this fellow comes up to me and he says, can I have this dance, please? It was Harry.
While they were courting, Harry would take Myra to Swansea Empire every week. Watching the acts on stage, he found himself filled with a desire to get up and show them what he could do. He decided to take the plunge. He got in touch with a theatre critic he'd met in the army who suggested he try the Windmill Theatre. The Windmill was famous as the only theatre in London with a live nude review.
The funny thing was, I found I had far more friends
Harry Seacombe joined in
at
1946.
the Windmill than I've ever had before or since, because people would come to the stage door and say, "Hello, Harry boy, you remember me?" And he'd take him up the canteen for a cup of tea and a sandwich. And all the girls, of course, would come up there between shows or after they'd finished something, in very wispy negligees and things. Anybody come in from outside would sit there and go, "Oh, yeah, oh, look at..." And you couldn't really conduct a normal conversation because they weren't listening at all. Well, my brother's a vicar, and 4 of his clerical friends came at odd times to see me. Well, odd times, they came about 4 times a week.
With 6 shows a day and an audience that didn't come for the comedy, the Windmill was a tough training ground for a young comic. Harry got through it with a routine he'd dreamt up in Italy, the shaving act.
First of all, let's take a small boy shaving for the first time. And then he finds he's got no blade in.
Those early years as a variety turn weren't glamorous. Harry often found himself kipping on friends' floors, but appearances on radio shows like Variety Bandbox began to win him more live bookings. Harry learnt his trade working in music halls up and down the country. It was a tough apprenticeship for any young performer, as Harry found out one night in Bolton.
I was in the bar, having a drink, a large rum, I said, and all the bar had cleared, except for one fella, and a little group of, one fella that's back to me, and a group of people around him, you see, big fat fella. So he was going, "I've seen nothing like it in my life." He said, "I've seen out like it, by heavens." He said, "Shave it, by God." So I tapped him on the shoulder, emboldened by the rum, you see. I said, "Excuse me," in a polite conversational manner, because I was drunk. So I said, I said, "Excuse me." I said, "But I'm the fella you're talking about." He said, "That's him." He said, "You should be ashamed of yourself." I said, "Well, I haven't adjusted myself yet. I've been playing him in the West End." He said, I just haven't had time to adjust." He said, "You couldn't adjust your braces." I said, "Who do you think you're talking to?" He said, "Who do you think you're talking to?" I said, "I don't care." He said, "I own this theatre." I said, "Oh, do you?" "It's very drafty backstage." I said, So he took out his wallet and he said, "Here you are. Here's your money. You can get train in the morning. You're not shaving my bloody time."
In 1948, Harry and Myra got married. Their first child was born a year later. When he wasn't being a family man, Harry liked to hang out in Grafton's, a pub owned by ex-serviceman and comedy writer Jimmy Grafton. There he'd meet up with his old mate Spike and a comic he knew from the Windmill called Michael Bentine. But it was when Harry met a comedian called Peter Sellers that the final piece of the puzzle fell into place. Together, these 4 men would revolutionise British comedy.
We did a trial recording for Pat Dixon, and it was pretty incoherent, but he thought there was something in it. And the BBC, God bless them, gave us a trial, I think it was 6 or 13 or something, shows to start with. And that's really how it began. We did these first 6, and we began to get a bit clearer. Yeah. And all the terrible... But eventually, it settled down to a sort of storyline, and it was discovered fairly early on that any voices I did always sounded like me. So I was told rather quietly that I should stick to one voice, and they got me to do Neddy.
Neddy Seagull.
And then they formed... everything sort of happened around Neddy, Bloodknock and all the other characters.
Who are you? Me? I'm Lance Private Eccles, but most people call me by my nickname.
What's that?
Mick. That's a joke. I made a joke about the Mick.
I inspected the man closely. He was the nearest thing I'd seen to a human being without actually being one.
I say, Seagull, surely you don't suspect this man? Why, we were together in the same company during that terrible disaster.
What company was that?
Desert Song, 1933.
Were you both in the doily cart?
Right in the doily cart.
For an audience that had grown up on traditional music hall humour, this was mind-blowing stuff. The show was a smash hit. Every Sunday, no matter where he was performing, Harry would rush back to London for the Goon Show. In fact, for all the goons, Sunday was the highlight of the week. After rehearsal, they'd nip into the pub next door for a bottle of brandy and a pint of milk. Then back on the Camden Theatre stage, they'd let rip.
Hang on! Hello, folks of world. I'm speaking to you using the new aluminium voice cone projector. I will start my comeback with a new trick taught to me by a one-legged sailor who did toffee apple impressions for Noel Coward. You hear that?
The show ran for 9 years and made Harry a household name. During that time, he also continued his successful solo career as both a comedian and a gifted singer. For many years, he hadn't dared take his singing seriously, using it mainly for comic effect.
I've got a handful of songs to sing. Sit right down and write myself a letter. I feel a song coming on. Give me the moonlight. Give me the girl. In an English country garden.
It was singing teacher Manlio Di Veroli who turned Harry into a serious singer. Harry said that Di Veroli took his voice apart the way a skilled mechanic dismantles an engine. When he put it back together again, it was a thing of beauty. Harry's talent as a singer was to take him to the very top of the charts. It was while he was holidaying in Barbados with composer Wolf Mankiewicz that Harry mentioned an idea he had for a musical, based on the Dickens novel The Pickwick Papers. Mankiewicz liked it. He set about writing Pickwick and in the process created a star role for Harry. Pickwick was a big challenge for Harry. For the first time, he had to step out of his music hall persona and really act. When the first night of the show's American tour was met with rapturous applause, Harry cried more than he ever had before in his life.
If I ruled the world, every day would be the first day of spring. Every heart would have a new song to sing, and we'd sing of the joy every morning would bring. If I ruled the world, every man would be as free as a bird. Every voice would be a voice to be heard. Take my word, we would treasure each day that occurred.
If I Ruled the World was a #1 hit for Harry. During the 1970s, he enjoyed one success after another, blending music and comedy in TV shows that attracted millions of viewers.
But what has been is past forgetting. This sweet
While his solo career went from strength to strength, Harry still found time for the odd reunion with old friends.
It was in the month of December, and in the year of 1883, that the monster wheel came to Dundee, resolved for a few days to sport and play, and devour the small wee fishes in the silvery tea.
So the monster whale, thank you.
Slightly under-rehearsed, this show.
So the monster whale did sport and play amongst the innocent...
Go on, keep going.
Innocent little fishes in the beautiful Tay, until he was seen by some men one day, and they resolved to catch him without delay. Spruce, you're next.
Yes, then the water to descend on the men in the boats.
It's going to be a hard night tonight.
In 1981, having entertained the nation for 4 decades, Harry was awarded a knighthood.
I was practicing yesterday, and I split my trousers. So I thought, if it happened today, so I had all my trousers reinforced. Unfortunately, it was a nice high stool and no bother.
You didn't need the block and tackle that you
no,
were talking about.
Thank heavens, no. I had to get up in time.
Can you give us a
stay at the old night bachelor? Yes, there we are, sir.
Harry and his friends had always joked about his weight.
I'm sorry, sir, you cannot put that huge, bloated Welsh body down.
Watch it, Rosa.
I have been watching it, sir, and it gives me no pleasure.
But by the 1980s, it was no longer a laughing matter. Now weighing in around the 20-stone mark, Harry was experiencing problems with his health. Even after a near-fatal bout of peritonitis, he didn't heed doctors' advice to change his behaviour. A couple of years later, the consequences caught up with him. In 1982, Harry was performing at Sydney Opera House when he almost passed out on stage. The doctor that examined him the next day told him that if he didn't change his lifestyle, Harry would be dead within 2 years.
So I wouldn't have died then, and I haven't had a drink since that day.
Do you miss it?
I'm thirsty. No, I don't miss it. I'm telling you, Phil, I missed it to begin with.
And do you miss the drink?
No, I don't. No. No, I don't miss it.
We do have, thanks to your permission,
yes,
your current passport photograph.
Oh, have you seen it?
We'd like to have a look at this. Harry Seacombe's current passport photograph. All I want to know is, how did you get back into the country?
Honestly, they take a second look. I had to sing a chorus of I Rule the World to get in. Then they kept me out.
At the age of 62, when others might have been winding down their careers, Harry was about to embark on a new one. In 1983, he was invited to present a new Sunday night show featuring hymns and real-life stories from believers all over Britain. Though Harry claimed he wasn't a heavily religious man, his natural warmth made him the perfect presenter for Highway. When I was a teenager, I was lucky enough to sing with Harry in Rome for a special edition of Highway. It would have been very easy for him to treat me like a little kid, but he actually took me under his wing. I have very fond memories of tasting my first glass of red wine sat next to Harry Seacombe at the piano. As he used to say, it's nice to be big, but you don't have to be big to be nice. Highway ran for 10 years, and when it ended, Harry was quickly headhunted by the producers of Songs of Praise. But in 1999, Harry suffered a double blow. Just weeks after he'd been diagnosed with prostate cancer, he had a serious stroke. In order to improve public awareness of the challenges faced by stroke sufferers, Harry and Myra allowed documentary makers to follow them through the long, slow process of recovery.
Myra has been at Harry's side throughout, giving her encouragement and support as she's done through the 52 years of their marriage.
They're wonderful, these two. They're really wonderful. Every flicker of a finger or anything all excites us, you know. But that is wonderful. That takes some determination, because he's got to sort of set himself up to do it. Yeah. Sad on times.
Good. Well done. Get into your rhythm. Lovely. That's it. That's it. There we are. Hey, well done.
Oh, that's the first time.
That feel good?
Yeah, it is, yeah. Independent feeling about it. It's worth the hard work, isn't it?
Oh, every bit. So you work really hard.
It's tissue time in the gym.
Oh dear, Myra, you and I together.
By the time Harry appeared as a guest on Songs of Praise in the year 2000, he was once again back on form.
I've got prostate cancer, diabetes, and a stroke. And the one thing to do to forget about prostate cancer is to have a stroke. It concentrates the mind, Joe.
Sure it does. But I mean, there are things that are never going to be quite the same again.
No, well, I think once you get a stroke, you say, well, that's it. You know, for now, that's the end of the Harry Seacombe that was, and now there's a new life opening up. So it's
Have you
great.
found yourself grieving in some ways for what you've lost?
Not really. I think if you wallow in self-pity, then you don't get anywhere. You've got to accept what's happened to you and get on with life.
Harry's positive attitude, his sense of humour, and the love of family and friends all helped pull him through.
What's this thing in the horse called Doris?
Well, one ran away.
Yeah.
God, those great days, Harry. We
They were
actually
good days,
saw the last days of
the best of variety. Yeah, we did. Yeah.
You must be one of my oldest friends.
Yeah.
I'm 81, and I don't seem to be anywhere nearer death than if I was 100. And I actually was wondering what my deathbed scene would be like. I'd like to be there and all my children around me. I would like that.
Well, I think, you know, when you've gone on, when you've passed on, whatever, there's something in a poem that, and think this heart, all evil shed away, a pulse in the eternal mind, no less gives somewhere back those thoughts by England given. Now that thing, a pulse in the eternal mind, to me represents what's happened to us after we die.
Oh, I'll have to wait for that then.
Harry passed away on the 11th of April, 2001. Harry's death didn't really sink in for me until his memorial service at Westminster Abbey. Sat there with friends, family, royalty, and some of the best broadcasters and comedians in the world. You got a real sense of the man's character. Yes, he rubbed shoulders with princes, but he was just as happy passing the time of day with people here in Swansea. That's what made him great.
Harry Seacombe, this is your life.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a laugh with some old favourites. The Classic Comedy Collection is streaming now on BBC iPlayer.